Start it up.
Welcome back to the MBH podcast, Money Buys Happiness, episode 6, with our lovely guest, Lauren Power. How are you?
What's up?
Everyone's so excited to drink wine today.
I know, we've been like, Ernesto's been staring at the bottle for like, this is like 9 a.m. today. He's like, okay, let's just get this going.
Yo, big shout out for always giving us wine. Though,
Yeah,
straight
yeah,
up.
even
This
early
is the
on.
lovely lady that always gives us wine.
Yes.
The lovely lady.
And we promote it and we drink the shit out of it. But thank you for that. Before we get into anything, this is Lauren Power. We always shout her out. So.
But with that being said, maybe give us a little insight on yourself, what you do, your business, your background, all of that. And then we can dive deep into that.
Yeah, totally. So the wine business is actually something that my dad really got into with a friend of his I was a kid. I was playing soccer like competitively, as like a 12-year-old. So all-star, whatever it was. Yeah. And I met a friend on the team and we became super close. And then our parents became super close. And the father of my friend had this wine agency. And my dad was like kind of out of place. My dad's like, you've met my dad. Yeah. Like he's like very... Like he's like always been like a sales guy, but he's worked in so many different industries. Like at the time he was like working for a pet bed company, like working with Walmart and Loblaws and things like that. Yeah.
Damn. Okay.
So he was like, you know what? Like I like wine, I like sales, so why not? And the two of them kind of went in on it and started actually like making it a business. My mom was working in the stock market, and after the recession, like 2008. Couple years she stayed there, and then there just like wasn't really much for her there anymore. Like she wasn't happy. And
tough time.
So she stopped working there. Took a couple years to do her thing, and then my dad, God love him, like super salesy and awesome, like just a really good guy, but good at what he does, but like cannot do finance or ordering, like the most unorganized guy I've ever met in my life. So she kind of came in and was like, she's like everything he's not. So the two of them went in on it. Me and my sister were like, all right, like our parents are getting divorced at like this stage of our life. Like we're having 2 Christmases. This is what's going to happen. And it didn't end up working like that, obviously. So the two of them now do it, or started doing it together, bought out the other couple guy that was involved, and now they run it together. So my dad does, again, he deals with like all the sales sides of things. Cool. And more of like, the products we're working with. My mom's like the brains, like the money, the ordering, the admin, all of that stuff.
So how old is this business? And by the way, it's Trey Amici Wines, right? Or is it Trey Amici Imports?
So it's,
okay. I mean, what's the official name?
Yeah, it's imports because we work with water companies. We've like done olive oil, and it was we wanted to make it a little bit more general.
Cool.
Even when I say Trey Amici Wines, just because.
And I say that too.
Yeah. Like we do tequilas and things too, right? So we try and keep it, but
okay, cool.
Imports is like the
and official. The business is how old exactly?
So I guess like 20-ish years.
Okay. Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is this always something that like you were gonna get into?
Yeah.
Because I mean, you saw your parents doing it.
No, not at all.
Yeah, that was my question. Because did you go to school? How did you find your way into it? Because I feel like you're so invested in it now.
Yeah.
Well, hey, it's a great thing.
Yeah.
Fuck, if it was wine, I'd do the same thing.
So growing up, I was like, it's weird because now obviously like we see wine and tequila and we're like, this is so cool, this is so fun. Even growing up, I was like, this is not cool. Like you guys need to like
stop
import.
Drinking.
Yeah, it was like, why don't you guys import like Smirnoff or like whatever sourpuss, like whatever I was drinking at the time. I'm like, I did not, and none of us did growing up have like an appreciation or understanding for wine. So I didn't really think much of it honestly growing up, and I was also very teenager-ish. I was like, I'm
thinking about that stuff anyways.
And I was like, I don't want to work with my parents. Like I'm gonna do way better than like I'm gonna like do my thing. So I went to school. I was like growing up like that, like shithead classic kid, like just always getting into trouble. Like my sister is the complete opposite, like very, very good at school, all of that. So my parents would always joke, they're like, you better be nice to your sister because you're gonna have to live like in her garage or something one day. Cause you have like
classic, of course.
So I always growing up was like, I have no effing clue what I'm gonna do. Like no clue. I was just like, just get by every day, like be a nice person, like be funny, like be whoever you are,
Yeah.
and like it'll just figure itself out.
Of course.
So I went to school, I went to university in Guelph I got like a business degree, like whatever that was.
Classic.
Yeah. And graduated, and then I found a job downtown and moved downtown. That was like my goal. It was like, just get a job so you can move downtown.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I didn't want to move back home.
Yeah.
So I found a job in advertising. I worked there for about a year, lived downtown, and then, I kind of like hit a point like in terms of mental health where I was suffering with a lot of different things, like struggling really bad with eating disorders and just very confused, right? Like my life was always very like go, just like get to the next thing with like no plan or direction.
Once you get there, you're like, okay, now what?
Yeah. And I feel, especially with, even partying at like that stage of our life too, right? Like it all just completely caught up to me, and I had to take some like time off of life. So I stopped working. I went to a treatment center to I guess like, figure out how to like deal with like more of the more severe stuff, like the eating disorder and like depression and things like that. Came out of that. I was there for 2 months, and then I came back home and then lived with my parents for a bit, and then I was like, I need to move back downtown. I need like my own life. And it was like, I always explain it as like I felt like a kid again, because I was like, I get to like recreate my whole life, and I feel so lucky to be able to even share this story and tell this story, because a lot of people don't even have the opportunity to try and not get better, because I feel like if you have something, if you have like inherently have, issues with mental health, like you'll always have them, but just find strategies to deal with them better and then cope with them and deal with them in your life. So, I was given that opportunity luckily, and I spent probably 2 years just like trying to get back on my feet. And at the time when I had come out of treatment, and I didn't want to go back into the job that I had, because it was like crazy hours, and I knew it would like go right back into that opposite direction. Yeah. So my parents were like, listen, you can come work with us for a couple of days a week. They were planning this event at the time. We have every 2 years, we have like 30 or 40 of our winemakers come into Toronto, and we do like this show.
Sick. I remember the most recent one too. Yeah.
So this was three or 4 years ago now. And my parents had always said to me, they're like, we don't want you to come and work for us. Like, you're not going to be that kid who like fucks around all, growing up and then gets a job at a company that her parents worked for. And I didn't want to be that kid either. More so like because I was worried about what other people thought, right? Like I was like, I don't want, So my parents were reluctant, but they were like, just come work. Like, you don't really have any other option at this point, right? Like, what are you going to do? So started that. And then in that, like just working with our suppliers, and, I call them our suppliers, but they honestly feel like family, like they're friends, like I speak with most of them almost every single day, like just, casually on WhatsApp, like just seeing how they're doing, right? Like, and being exposed to those cultures without even traveling, just, having them here and speaking with them, like just exploring different cultures through that, like helped me so much in my, I guess, recovery on whatever I was going through, because I really had that opportunity to like just speak with so many different people and without having this like guard up of like, I need to be this type of person or whatever. It was just like me starting from scratch, really. Yeah, cool. And, in that, I basically just fell in love really with the people and, what we were doing. I loved like seeing the products, and even at the time I wasn't even drinking. Yeah. So.
That changed quick.
I was going to say, you fell in love with the people, and luckily the product was wine and tequila.
It's true.
Yeah, totally. So it was like finding an appreciation really of like the culture of what we were doing and the people, as opposed to the actual product of things, which I even feel like helped my even relationship with alcohol, because growing up, even like pre-pandemic, right, like partying all the time, it's like
just
now
abuse it and stuff.
So my relationship, I guess, with myself, most importantly with myself, and then obviously with alcohol, really changed and helped me to become where I am now.
Yeah.
And I want to know, because I'm curious, because you're very active online. Like, you're actually one of the few people I know creating as much content as you are. Like, there's really not many people doing and just creating daily content. Like, you're probably creating more than him, which is like a fucking statement and a half. So
No, there's no way. He's like giving me cut eye now. He's like,
what
what
the fuck did you just say? No, but seriously, you're doing a great job of that. You're very active, and that's hard. That's extremely hard to do. So, like, once you moved in and started working with your parents, when did you take that step? How did you take that step to say, hey, like, I'm going to kind of grow my own brand under this, right? Because I'm sure it's a lot of work. So how did that come to be?
That's what I noticed as well, which I like that you do, is you always connect your name with what you're doing too, right?
Yeah.
So people are knowing your name out there, right? Which is great, and you're putting your name out there. But yeah, I think I have the same question as what kind of steps did you take to realize that, I got to do this because this is going to work?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So even speaking to the name thing, my goal was always like knowing that things change so fast, and as we grow and as we change, what we like to do and what we're good at change. So my goal was always like to grow something for myself. Yep. And if in 10 years I'm selling like AA memberships, like the complete opposite of what I'm doing, right? People will trust me, people will buy from me, or people will work with me and like me and trust me because of who I am, right?
Huge.
So it was always really important for me to have like my own brand behind what I'm doing. So I guess when it comes to, social and doing that, it was really within like the past year and a half, like on my personal, like when I was using Instagram more for personal reasons, I was sharing about kind of my mental health journey and what I was going through. And I found a lot of people that I knew, and also a lot of new people that kind of had found me or I had found them. Like, I was really able to connect with people on that level. Yeah. And so I started with like a very, very small like group of people who were following me. Yeah. And when I started becoming more invested in the wine side of things, and not only just the wine and like the drinking of the wine, but it was like, I knew that the way that I connected with people, and it was done very unintentionally, was through like, again, with the mental health and with that like very, very personal part of my life that I knew if I wanted to get people invested into wine, there needed to be a reason. It wasn't like, drink this is so good.
Connection.
Yeah.
Right. And for me, I had to go through that personally. So it was like, what is my personal journey with alcohol? What is my personal journey with cultures and, Italian wines and Spanish wines and these producers and all of that? So I started to share more of that side that I thought people would be a lot more interested in. And also just making it super simple. Like, wine is something that even I, find sometimes kind of uncomfortable and pretentious when I'm around certain people. I knew that the people following me weren't people that, went to the LCBO to spend $80 bottles of wine. It was you guys, and right? And it was like,
just wanted to learn a bit more about the wine they're drinking.
Yeah. Right. What's a Cab? What's a Merlot? Like, what's the difference? So I started to create things that really helped people understand that side of things a little bit better. Yeah. That was just like very simple, very approachable, not pretentious, and not uncomfortable, right? It wasn't like, read about this 1994 Bordeaux, right? It was like, what the fuck is a Cab? What the fuck is a Merlot? Like, here's the difference. Like, try this one if you like this, right? So making it very simple. So I started doing that, and I was putting like a lot of time, a lot of work into the Instagram thing. Yeah. And then, you work on that for a little bit, and then you see the return of people reaching out and people, ask, like, wanting to buy wine or people wanting to talk about wine. And then, me as who I am, it's like, okay, people are asking for, more curated content for them. So that's where like the wine tastings developed and different things like that. So it was like, where do I find time to keep up the Instagram thing and then also manage all of the people that are coming to me. So about a year ago now, I had a girl actually from Niagara, and she worked at a restaurant, still works at a restaurant that we supply wine at in Niagara. And she reached out to me and was like, do you need help with your social? Like, if you do, basically this is what I do. And I was at the time not in a place where I was like hiring people for a business that wasn't a business for my Instagram, right? I was like, what am I doing? But I knew that if I wanted to continue on this, that I needed somebody to do that. And for me, it was like could I spend an extra 2 hours a day doing that? Like for sure I could have. But knowing that my mental health, that was like the most important. It always is the most important piece. So it's like the first thing is like, how much can I handle? Because as soon as I tip overboard, everything else crashes. So is it better for me to pay somebody out of my own pocket right now, you know, and really work with them and strategize with them on how to grow something and have that extra body, or put myself in harm's way? And at the time, and still, like, I know that that's not the right thing for me.
Of course.
So she started working with me, and it was very like, she came, she met me, and she was like, I was like, all right. She's like, these are my packages. I'm like, listen, I have no clue. Like, I know how to post on Instagram. I know how to engage. I know when to post. I know how to look at my analytics. I know, and that was also super important. Like, I didn't just hire somebody because I wanted to start something.
You knew about
an idea.
Yeah. And even to this day, right? Like, when I'm looking to hire somebody or add somebody to my team, it's like, I need to make sure that I'm doing it beforehand.
Of course.
And always. I know exactly what is going into
so
this,
you understand
right?
Exactly. You know what you're paying for.
Yeah. So she started, and then that was great. And I started doing like the in-person wine tastings with people, which were, you know, very like, I guess, high end. And that's kind of the way that I sold it at the time, because that's just what I thought was going to work the best.
Of course.
And when the pandemic hit, I was like, shit, right?
Can't
like,
do this anymore.
Yeah, I can't do that. My business, like my family's business, like, forget what I'm doing, but like our core business, like 80% of our customers are restaurant customers.
Boom, what a hit.
So we were like, and honestly, for the first time in my life, it was like, instead of going into that automatic, like, fuck, like, we're fucked. Like, you know, what are we going to do? Complaining. It was like I feel like I didn't even go through that, because it was like automatic, like, all right, like,
let's switch,
transition,
let's get to work. Let's go.
do something. So luckily, like, through growing my Instagram and being online a lot, I found this online community of other women predominantly who have their own online businesses. So I have a few really good friends now who, you know, I spend a lot of time with in person, who live close, who are very successful as online business coaches or confidence coaches or fitness coaches, whatever that be. So I spoke with them, and they were like, you need to do this virtually. And I was like, I can't. Like, I didn't see how it could work. And, you know, with the help of Anna, who works for me and started working with me a couple months before that and still does, like, we were just like heads down. And it was like, priority one, grow, like, figure out how we're going to better service private clients with the wine, and have this virtual wine tasting offering as well on the side, and merge them together when we can, and just like create things for people. When people come to us and ask us about something, just it's always yes. You'll figure it out. It will turn into something, right? And, you know, I had somebody reach out to me the other day and ask, like, you know, I want to start a business. Like, what should I do? Like who does your website and what's your logo? And I'm like, like, that's stuff that like I just finished a website like 2 months ago. Like, I was like, if I have people coming to me, like, wanting to do stuff with me, like, don't worry about what's on the website. Don't worry about a logo or what the brand name is. It's, to me, it was just like, make whatever you can work. Of course, right? So I think take
every opportunity. Right?
And I think a lot of people get caught up with the whole, like, I need a company and I need a brand
and I need
whatever
perfect before I go out there, right?
Like, I didn't even have like a payment system I was using.
Cash only.
And then virtually, I was like, what do I do? My friend was like, damn, like, get Stripe, you idiots. And I was like, e-transfer me. Like, I was getting people to e-transfer me on the phone to reserve their spot. Like, I'm like, oh, wait.
I love it.
Just because.
We got to go through it and learn that whole process, right? The one thing I want to bring up is kind of rewinding it a bit, is when I kind of noticed you were taking a step online, is what you mentioned when you were going through your personal stuff. And that's when I noticed. And I think that's a huge thing for you as a brand, because that you saw it work. You saw your authentic self, and you're being genuine with people, right? Like, they see that. And how many people that's kind of supported you or giving you feedback at that time are now maybe clients of yours or partners. Like, it's crazy, right? And I think that a lot of people skip out on that part. You didn't just come out of nowhere and say, here, buy wine, right? You gave people a background of yourself. So now when I look at it, I look at you as even more successful because I've seen what you've been through, right? So I think it's important to tell that story. A lot of people are scared to tell those stories, right? When that's what people want to see. They want to see the real you, right? they connect with you more. And like you said, it's your name, right? Like this is ever like going on forever. Your name's going to be with you forever, right? So if someone needs something, you're providing a different service or something down the line, that person may be with you because of that one video you posted, just being real with yourself and being real with other people, right? So I wanted to kind of highlight that because I think that's massive. I think a lot of people just try to show that perfect product at the end. They just try to show, see, I made it. I'm here.
Totally.
Yeah. But everyone wants to see, like, what did you do to get there? How did you even get there? Right? And I think you did a great job showing that. And it's not easy to go on camera and talk about personal things like that, right?
Yeah.
But we encourage it because there are people out there that appreciate it and they learn from it and they're inspired by it. There might be 5 people that hate you because of it. Who cares? Right? There's people that are inspired by it. Like, I still remember those videos. How crazy is that? Right?
Yeah.
That's something I was going to bring up anyways, because I thought that was you coming out of your shell. You know what I'm saying?
Totally.
Like getting out of your comfort zone. And another question I have is, how did you give yourself that clean slate? How did you say, okay, Lauren, I get a clean slate now, I get to start fresh again? Because a lot of people would have just brought their baggage with them and would have had a hard time. Yeah. So how did you get past that? How did you give yourself permission to say, okay, you know what, this is a clean slate for me now?
Yeah. I think like when I was like really going through everything a few years back, I was basically at a point where it was like, if I keep going the way that I am physically and mentally, like I'm not going to make it much longer. So I need to give somebody else control over what's going on, because I can't even trust myself to make my own decisions. So I needed to basically like relinquish control over every single thing that I did to somebody else. Right. And at the time it was like my dad was luckily like took a very big role into like figuring out where I was going to go to do that. And luckily that happened. And then when I actually got to that place, I was like, okay, so now I feel much better and I feel like I'm on a better path now. So I just need to make sure I'm not doing anything I used to do. So every time I make a decision, and so many things that we make subconsciously, right? Like every time I do something, I need to question why I'm doing it. So it was like, why, if I went to post something, it's like, why am I not posting that? Or why am I posting that? Even to like, why am I going to hang out with this person if I don't want to? Right? Why am I spending time on the phone with this person or messaging this person if I know they're not going to be there for me if I go through something like that, right? Like I had to, in relationships, right? All the different relationships in my life, that was a big thing. But then it was also like, how am I spending my time? How am I doing all of that? So once I was able to really go through all of the different like people and situations and whatever and figure out how I wanted to now start treating them, it was like, it was like, if I want to continue growing, this is the next thing to do.
This is what I have to do.
And I've always been somebody who's been like very, like just like, I've always been like the way that I am. I just didn't have the confidence to do it. So I was doing it very like not confidently. Like I was doing it for somebody else or for a reason. And now it's like, I'm the way that I am because I like the person that I am.
Huge.
So to get that clean slate, I was like, sharing this story I know is going to help other people. And I'm somebody who, really cares about other people and especially people in my life. And to do this, I know this is the next step I have to do, right? So I did that. I allowed myself to do that. And then I went on the next day and the next day and the next day.
And that actually seems to be like the common theme of, not only people that we have on the podcast, but just in general, if you listen to anybody speak, like taking that step, not only from a business perspective, but like a personal perspective to come out and say, you know what, I'm going to share my story, good, bad, great day, bad day, whatever it is. The cool way of measuring, I guess, success of like how people interacted with that piece of content you put out, your story, whatever, is just like, and I like that you said this, was like you measured success by just like receiving a couple messages of people being like, hey, I resonate with that, or asking you questions or whatever. It wasn't right away to be like, hey, what are they going to buy from me? It was like, hey, I put this out. This is cool. Yeah, people are actually talking to me. You actually said, I think, just people wanting to discuss things with me. And that's a way to measure success, right? Because you start to build those relationships and it becomes real. And exactly, down the line, maybe that's a sale, maybe that's a friend. But either way, both of those things are success, right? You measure success in both those ways. People have trouble with that. They're thinking like, well, if I put this piece of content out, am I going to make a sale from it? you got to go beyond that, right?
Totally.
You got to go beyond that. I'm sure how many people you had these conversations with, whether it was about your personal struggles or whether it was about Cab or Merlot, that ended up being clients without you really having to be like, hey, buy this wine off me.
Totally.
Right? People have that trouble. So I think by you taking that step, that's huge.
Yeah,
right?
I think your content has been very engaging, and I think that because of going back to that time, that kind of lets you open up and be confident with yourself, and you saw the kind of return. Now your posts are so engaging. Like you have these stories that are asking questions. You're doing polls, right? Like you're always getting the person involved, and I think that's the genuine part.
Yeah.
Right. You're not just posting something, say sign up here, ciao later. Right.
Yeah.
Like
Throw my
you're
email
so
list,
into it, right? Like you're answering all these DM questions, and you're answering all these questions that they're putting on the poll, and like those are little things at the end of the day that. Okay, an average person would say those are just little things, right? But you don't know who you're affecting by just answering that one question or responding with a clap, like all those little things, right?
Yeah.
And I think that you've been able to see that. You've seen that kind of growth. You've seen that kind of engagement. So now you're just like, you know what? I'm going to put this towards the wine stuff now.
Totally.
And the drinks. And I'm sure you've seen it grow. Like I'm sure I was going to ask you, like, how do you measure your growth really? Because as entrepreneurs, we're always trying to make sure we're growing and we're taking the right steps. So how do you measure your growth? And what's growth to you?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah.
I like just going back to that. I think that when I first I remember the first stories I started making about wine. I was like, okay, what am I going to talk about? Like, you know, and I was like looking at like my inventory. I was like, if I talk about Prosecco, like, am I going to have enough Prosecco to sell people? And it was like, you know, nobody engaged with those stories. And I was like, oh, I guess this isn't going to work. Right. And then, you know, I was like, okay, just keep going. And it's when I post things now, like even different offerings and whatever, like the success of that is not how many people buy it. So like, you know, obviously how many people are buying things and money and stuff is something that I look at, but the automatic return on it, right? Like that, like that's not, it's not something I look at. It's not something I care about because I would never follow somebody and as soon as they started posting something, I would buy something from them. Right?
That's like your 10th
and that's huge.
thought.
You got to put yourself in the other person's shoes.
Totally.
Right? You have to. And a lot of people don't do that.
Yeah.
They're kind of being selfish with it. They're just like, no, I'm going to post this Prosecco because I need to sell the Prosecco.
Yeah.
But they're not thinking the people watching, what do they want to see?
Yeah.
Right. And because of the kind of posts that you have, I think that even myself, like I've learned more about wine.
Me too.
I see your
100%.
post and it makes you make it easy to engage about the wine. You're like, okay, red or white. I'm like, this is easy, red. Right. Like seriously though, right? But now little do I know I'm engaging with your posts, right? About wine, which I probably wouldn't do with any other page just because it doesn't interest me like that. There's no connection, right? So I think that's huge. And like we're always pushing that. And I think the engagement part of your page has been unreal. And like
thank you.
Kudos to you for taking the time to respond to everyone because every interaction matters, right? You never know who you're interacting with, who's looking, who's trying to talk to you. Like
totally.
And what I like is that, and what you said, like you post a Prosecco story, nothing happened, right? How many times have you posted something that didn't work, but you tried it, right? You went out there and you're like, I'm going to try this type of story today, put this piece of content out, see how it does. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. Like how many times would you say have you tried to reinvent the wheel before you actually found like a piece of content you're like, I'm going to stick with this on a weekly basis? Yeah.
You know what's really funny? I was doing a tasting. This was back in the summer because we were outside and it was with like a few people I'm quite close with. And I know like have known me and follow me and always interact because we're friends. And we were doing like a faux kind of wine tasting and I was talking about Prosecco and Prosecco was probably like I always talk about Prosecco, right? Like, so, and I was explaining something that I probably talk about on my page once a week in some sort, which is like the sugar level of Prosecco, right? Like brew versus dry and extra dry. And I said that, and my one good friend was like, "Oh, I didn't know that." I'm like, "I talk about this," and I'm like, "I know."
That's when you start to realize who's actually looking at stuff.
It wasn't even that. I was like, "I know you watch it," like and I know, and then I was like, you know what, like, because I was always like something new, and it's like you don't have to always be reinventing the wheel, right? Like you never know who's looking, and not even who's looking, but at what stage they're looking at. Because there's so many things I see every day that I wouldn't buy or I wouldn't engage with. And then one day I'm like, I find an interest in it.
If they still have your attention, you're like, okay, now I'm ready. Let's go.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was super interesting because I was like, I always feel like I'm repeating myself and apparently I'm not.
Of
so
course.
I got
but you know what? There's people swiping through, and I see it all the time. People swiping through my stories, and then we're posting a lot of the same shit. We post our podcast stuff, all of the same brands we work with, you know, our restaurant, whatever it is. And I've posted the same, similar story, talking about the same thing or whatever 20 times. And on the 21st time, someone who, if I looked back, they saw my story, saw in quotations, but didn't really engage with it. The 21st time, they're like, hey, I'm coming by this weekend to try the new burrata you guys have, whatever, right?
Yeah.
People think it's like every day I got to do something new, something fresh. It doesn't need to be that way.
And people are really lazy as well. Like you have to remember that. Like they could have seen the post and just maybe not asked at that time because they're like, I don't care right now. I'll wait till I see her.
And to be fair, like I'm posting captions and stories and I'm
very detailed. It's very detailed.
And all of this content and it's I'm writing it and it's my information. It's what's in my head. So even when my friends post things about, like what they're doing on the weekend, it's like I'm like okay, cool. Like I'm it's not something that's registering in my head. So that was something that was like funny and that was pretty interesting.
But that's the thing. That's why you never want to kind of try to please people at all. Because you're like, let's say you tried to please your friends. You're like, oh, they're not even watching. I'm gonna stop this shit then.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But there's a whole lot of people out there that actually know everything that you posted probably, right? And have actually remembered it, right? So that comes with like the fact that you can't please everyone, and what you're putting out there is just for literally anyone to see, right? We know the closest people to us are the ones that interact with us the most and engage with us the least. And that's how life is. You're putting it out there for the random person, right? You're putting it out there to keep it in their mind.
And I think bouncing off that is what's important is something we always preach is when it comes to content, quantity over quality. And it's not in a bad way. I'm not saying you just fucking post anything you want, a fucking picture of the floor and talk about why it wouldn't make sense. There needs to be thought behind it. But people think when I post content, I got to get a professional videographer, professional photographer. Listen, like if it's for your brand, okay, maybe, but like especially when it's personal, like it's your personal brand, like we have phones that fucking film in like 4K, or Dean's gonna kill me for saying that. He knows better. But like,
Dean's like, what the
these fucking phones film in like whatever they film in. Like it's high enough quality. Like take your fucking phone, start filming. We had that guy Nima on our last episode. He films all his content off his phone. He's never had a camera.
Cracked phone.
His phone is shattered to pieces.
And probably one of the best content creators right now coming out of Toronto.
Yeah,
crazy.
And it's just. Yeah.
Oh yeah, comedian. Sorry, he doesn't like to be called.
He doesn't like that. So it's just like I think people think too hard after, and they're like, "Oh, I need this." It's just like that's where we say, you know what, like quantity over quality, because the more you're showing people this content, the more you're in their head, and maybe they're not messaging you today, but they're messaging you tomorrow or the next week, right? And I think that's where you kill it, is you are just so consistent with the amount of content you're putting out. It's almost hard not to see you. Like I didn't wake up today being like, hey, I want to learn about wine, but next thing I know, I'm learning about wine. It's 3 p.m. I'm like, oh shit. Oh really? Like I'm fucking learning this shit. I'm like, yeah, you know what? Impressive. It's just impressive. It's super impressive.
I want to talk a bit about your pops, because I see he's a big mentor for you. I know he's a big man. It's his birthday today, too.
Yo, happy birthday. Yeah, cheers.
Happy birthday.
Shout out pops for that one, eh?
Cheers.
Cheers.
So let's talk about that relationship, because I think that's dope and
huge.
A lot of, like I said, like he was saying too with Nima and a lot of our guests too, that they do have mentors, and a lot of the time it is their parents sometimes, right? And
starts there, yeah.
Nima and his mom now they're making videos together, right? And stuff
hilarious.
like that. It's crazy, right?
I saw the videos of your dad today, killing me.
But I'm like, wow, right? So like, how's that relationship? What does he think about everything? Is he someone that you've like looked up to this whole time and said like, okay, that's the guy I gotta try and be like a bit here?
And what are his thoughts on the way that you've taken your personal brand? Because of course, like I know he's on the gram, right? So what are his thoughts on the way you've taken it? Because essentially it started from being his business, but you've put your own spin on it. So what are his thoughts on everything?
Yeah. So me and my dad have been like super tight since I was like a kid, and I think I even posted something of a picture of us, and I wrote like, this is my best buddy on it. Like we've been so tight, and my dad is like the most important relationship to me that I have in my life. He's always just been so supportive, and he's always been that person that's like, I've obviously struggled with a lot. I got in so much trouble growing up, like, and it was always like him dealing with it. I was Daddy. I remember in high school, at the school I went to, they would call your parents once a month to give you like an update just on like your marks review. And everything.
Oh shit.
And
I didn't go there.
So it was it was like once a month on a Sunday. Like I would have to I'm like, I know I'm getting my phone taken away. Like I'd have to prep, right? I have to delete all my messages. Like so in like grade 11, grade 12, I told my teacher, I'm like, my parents, it's just so untrue and so bad. I'm like, my parents are getting divorced. You can't call my mom because she's a little like, she's having a rough time. So I don't want you to call her. Cause
wow, you're
like,
scheming.
So
man.
bad,
You're
right?
scheming.
And my dad knew. He was like, oh man, don't let them call. Like, but I'm like, Dad, you got it. You have to deal with it. You have to take it. He was always just like, he always said, he's like, if you're honest with me, like even if you like do something and you're telling the principal you're not doing, like, that's not, you need to tell me what you did. Just be honest with me and we will get through anything. So again, he's always been like my guy. And then when I went through like my mental health stuff, it was like, I mean, it was difficult on every relationship I had, especially with my family and, you know, my parents and my sister. But my dad had hit a point where he was like, I don't get it. And he kept asking me like, how do I be better for you? And I didn't have the answer to it. And it was something that like I saw he learned, and he was so invested in what I was going through. And he was like, I don't need to understand it. Like, I don't need to understand exactly, because I'm never going to, but I need to respect that this is her path, and I need to do whatever I can to make it easier for her.
It's amazing.
And that was like him putting his life and all, like, it was always me first, which was very, I know, difficult for him. And you know, being able to do that for me was really like what gave me this life that I'm able to have now. So I'm very grateful for him. So, you know, when it came to the whole, like me joining the business and things like that, me and my dad are very similar. So we, you know, working on new projects and him incorporating me into a lot of the things was pretty seamless, right? And at the beginning, it was like, oh, I'm doing this Instagram thing. And I was like, Dad, like I'm doing
Check this out.
I'm like, I'm doing like a photo shoot. I was like, can I have like $300? He's like, I don't have any money. Like, and I need to get like a professional photo shoot done. He was like, you know, like, okay, like trying to be supportive. And he always, I think what I love about him the most and like what I respect about him the most is like he's seen me obviously change so much in the past like year or two, and seen how successful my business has taken off personally, and how much it's really helped their business as well, and how, you know, I incorporate, obviously I really have a business off of their business with the product and everything, right? This is just another level, another step of it. So whenever I say something, I'm like, I think we should do it this way. I think we should whatever, regardless of like, if we're in a meeting with like CEOs of major companies, like owners, even with like, you know, our admin team in the office, he will never ever like brush off my idea. He'll never say like, no, this is what we're going to do.
Important. That's
he's
crazy.
like,
Huge.
he's very much like, look at what she's done. Right. Like, I don't need to speak for that, right? Like,
back it up.
Let her speak for herself. But like, he's very much like given me this opening. He's like, I trust you, and you know, whatever you say, not whatever you say goes, but whatever you say like is going to be taken.
That's crazy power to you though. That's like unreal. When you see that, like you see your dad who's been killing it in that industry, I guess, and has built something, and he's just like, yo, you know what? Yeah.
Cool. I feel like it
That's
means
huge.
more.
That's huge, right? Especially being new to the industry, right? And you're
100%.
like, who am I sitting in front of? Like, who are these people? And your dad's just like, no, I got you.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's huge. That's huge to have.
And it's actually probably, I feel like, harder to gain that kind of trust from a parent than it is from like a random boss, you could say, right?
It's, I mean, we, like, my family's had to really work on like our relationship as a family unit, because it's like, it's always business, and it's me, my mom, my dad, and then my sister does her own thing. Like she's kind of like getting into she's like an accountant or whatever she's doing, right? And it's very hard to separate.
You guys are at the dinner table just talking about like wine, selling wine. Like you're just like, okay, wait, hold on a second.
And my sister used to get like a really like, she was like,
well,
can
she
you
was
guys
the one
shut
out of it,
up?
right?
Yeah, she's like, I don't want to talk about this shit. Like, can you guys do this at the office? And now it's actually funny because my sister's super involved, and I think my parents giving me this like ability to make decisions and really empower me at a young age has been so eye-opening for them, and for even people that kind of watch me and follow kind of my story, because my parents are amazing in what they do, and they, obviously they're experts in exactly what they do with the company, but to have somebody who's younger and just sees things differently, like think of all of our friends and people that we know, right? Who are in jobs at companies whose like, not talents are wasted, but it's like, think of if they were
not really doing their passion.
Really. Talents are wasted.
But if they were given a little bit more like freedom with what they were allowed to do, or ideas that were able to come to fruition. Like I worked at a company for a year and I saw like how hard it was to like actually get something made and get something
through, get your idea to break through.
Because it's ego and there's so many people and there's so many like ladders.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I've been very lucky working with my parents and having a very small company, and
that's priceless. Like you can't even put a price on, anyone giving you that type of freedom or trust, right? Like that's tough.
I think you need it too. I think you need it.
Well, it's how you take the next step. It's how you grow, right? When you're given the opportunity to say, hey, like let's actually try this route. Let's go this way instead of that way. Let's try the new school way instead of the old, right?
Totally. Huge. And it's like a wine club, the Vintage Conservatory, this really awesome wine club. They just opened one up in Yorkville last year. Dope. They were doing a event with Toronto Life, and Toronto Life was doing this night with the Vintage Conservatory, and I was doing something in there and I came by. I was with my dad was there too, and the two of us kind of met up and we went to the Vintage Conservatory. I was talking with the owner, Costa, and we're talking about it, and Costa was saying, he's like, I want Trey Amici to be part of this. Like I want your wines there. Sick. And I want whatever, and I want you guys to speak at it. Dope. So I was like, oh, this is like super cool. He's like, yeah, like I want Lauren to speak at it. I don't want George to speak at it. Like, because the way that she talks about wine is very approachable and it's very whatever, right? And like my dad, I think, my dad will always, I know, will always support me and love me regardless of how I'm doing in my career. But even seeing that, like he sees how other people are really valuing what I do and valuing the way that I do things. And
your approach to it.
Yeah, and that's been very interesting.
Yeah. Of course.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's crazy. I mean, I see it all the time with you and your dad going at it and having a good time, right? So it's always nice to see that, right? And I kind of had a feeling too that had a lot to do with everything that's happened to you over time, right? I mean, fuck, if one of your parents puts that much faith in you, right? It's kind of like, okay, I got to do this now. Like, it's up to me now, right? I remember when fucking years back too, and I was thinking about getting out of school and switching schools and stuff like that. And my parents, they gave me that empowerment, but they pretty much said, hey, it's up to you now though.
Yeah, it's on you. It's on you, buddy.
We did what we had to do. We wanted you to go to school. You don't want to go to school. We agree. Yeah. Whatever you want to, whatever. Do whatever you want, but it's on you now, right? So you kind of have that empowerment, but it's that pressure too, right? Yeah.
And I think with me and my dad particularly, it's like whenever I get caught up in something, I'm like, I can't deliver on this, or like I want to do this, but it's like it's too much, like it's crazy, like the timelines. And he's like, and for us, he always comes back to me. He's like, don't put like, we'll figure it out. Like, don't put so much pressure on it. And I think like going through what my family went through, and especially like me and my dad's relationship, where it was like literally my life was on the line. It's like, talking about wine and wine deals, like it's something that when we get caught up about, it's like we're talking about fucking wine.
I know. Like, you need that though. You need to kind of just stop sometimes. But
it is because
fucking wine.
You can't take it like so seriously, and I'm bad with that. Like I'm like, it's like we got to figure this out. He's like, listen, we got this. Like,
of course.
So that's been, I think, like going through that and getting through that. It's like, all right, we can.
Worst things can happen.
It's just wine, It's just wine. We'll be okay. We'll be okay.
No, so what's next for you? I mean, I see everything that you're doing right now. Ongoing, do you have the wine classes still? Are you still doing those weekly, monthly? Like how's that going?
Yeah. So that right now it's holiday. Yeah. Going into holiday, so it's like corporate virtual tastings.
Nice.
Okay. So I think that's one more thing I want to say.
Yeah. But spit it.
When I started doing what I was doing on Instagram, a lot of people were like, the people that follow you aren't going to spend like $40 on a case of wine, because we can't even sell bottles. We have to sell cases, 12 bottles, right? So it's like a couple $100 investment every time you come to me for something, right? So, and I was like, and I was always very I was like, you're right, but I'll figure it out. And there were a few people that started, and then with the virtual stuff, I just kept doing it, and I kept getting all of these messages from like CEOs and directors and managers, and it was like somebody on their team who follows me recommended me. Right?
Amazing.
So it was
there you go. There
I was like, okay. So it was like that happened once, and now I've worked with Deloitte. I'm doing a national campaign with Air Miles next week. I'm doing LinkedIn, Roger, like so many big companies, and it's all been like somebody on their team who follows me, right? So it's like,
you never know.
That younger generation now it's going to work.
And
now they're going to work.
Like don't if your efforts aren't showing right away, or if it doesn't really make the most sense in your head, like don't get too caught up on that, because there's every time I post something, there's always a criticism that somebody can say.
Of course.
And it's like, just keep going.
Of course. You can't worry about all that, or else imagine you thought about that when you were first posting those videos. Imagine you're just like, you know what? I'm not going to post this. Fuck this. It's too much. No one's going to care. Like, that's what people think, though, when they're going through that, right? And that one decision kind of changed a lot for you, you know? Like, that confidence, right? So it's important you have that. Okay, so going into the new year, any new plans, any new goals?
Like make it through holiday. Like I have so many like corporate tastings, like 3 a day. Like it's so...
You're gonna have a good time. You're gonna have a fun time.
Yeah. I mean, I love doing them, so it'll be great. And then going into the new year, I really want to focus more on like the education piece of things. So with what I do, like the experiences that I offer, it's very much like entertainment and fun with that piece of education, and with the holidays and this kind of season, it's really focused on that side of things. But going into the new year, knowing that we're still going to be pretty much inside, especially with the weather and what's going on, I want to create something, and I have something created where people can actually start to develop their wine palates, and people like in their 20s and their 30s who have the time and want to put a little bit more thought into that side of things.
Yeah.
Dope.
100%.
Yeah. Dope. I'm going to be all about that, to be honest.
we got a question that we always ask. Obviously, the podcast is the MBH podcast, Money Buys Happiness.
Yeah.
I'm going to, like, the question we ask is, when you hear that saying, what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah. It was funny. I called my dad when I was walking here, and he's like at lunch with his friend. It's his birthday. And I was like, I'm on a podcast. It's called Money Buys Happiness. And he started laughing, and he was like, we were just talking about that, like with his friends. Right. And it's, the like proper side of me will be like, money can't buy happiness. And it's true. Like to be genuinely like happy with yourself. Like it's not something that, and I've been there, that money can buy, but it really does help to get there. Like I'm not going to say that what I went through, like even to keep up with like my therapy and whatever, like it takes money, it takes like investment, it takes a lot of resources to be able to get there. And which is why I'm so open about my story, because I know a lot of people don't have that access and those resources. So to me, money is something that makes life easier. Like it helps me get to where I need to be faster and better, right?
That seems to be the common answer.
I like that.
Everyone says it in their own way, but it kind of just comes down to like that same answer. So cool. Go. Appreciate that.
Okay, dope. All right.
Yeah. Listen,
we gotta have you back with some more wine, though.
We
should
what
do
do
like
you
a
think?
podcast.
You already finished yours.
Man, this is delicious.
It's Gary Vino here.
Gary Vino. I'm like fucking staring at it. I'm like, oh shit, I'm done. No, we gotta have you back for like a proper wine tasting while we do a little podcast.
With the team.
Get the team going.
Get
some content going. Jamila, you good there? You had the wine?
She got the headphones in.
She got the headphones in. She's done.
Well, listen, honestly, we appreciate you coming out and sharing your story and talking about it. It's really inspiring, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs, but also female entrepreneurs, will be like really excited to hear this, because I think your story, it's really, really inspiring, and you do a lot of good shit, and I think a lot of people need to take notice to what you're doing. So before we get out of here, maybe let people know where they can find you on the gram, LinkedIn, or whatever your main platforms are.
Yeah. So Instagram is at @LaurenPower_wine.
Cool.
And website, same Lauren Power Wine.
I think Lauren Power Wine.
Yeah. LinkedIn, I guess the same.
Lauren Power,
Yeah. I don't know. Just go to my Instagram and you'll see everything there. It's all pretty organized.
Cool. Well, on that note, appreciate you coming out.
Thank you for having me.
Always. And episode 6, we are out.